Hello and thank you for clicking onto my video. So as the title says, I'm planning on setting a vegetable garden here on this plot. So it's the second week of April now, and we're getting nice dry mild weather here, so as a result of that the ground has dried up nicely, especially on stony ground in which we are located on. The evenings have stretched quite a lot in terms of daylight, so that's also a huge benefit. It's been quite a long winter, and so it's quite nice to get that dry mild weather pretty much there nearly every day. And during the winter it has been raining. We've been here getting at least one storm a week, and you could hardly do anything outside. So the what you want to be thinking of prior to picking a spot is really the vital things that any plant needs to grow, which is as much as sunlight as possible getting to the area. That's quite vital for photosynthesis to happen within the plant. Photosynthesis is when the sunlight the plant absorbs, the plant along with microorganisms converts that sunlight into energy for the plant to grow. And access to water. Here in Ireland we get quite a bit of rain, so water isn't really an issue, but the summer here is unpredictable, so I would always highly recommend to be near access of tap water or some sort of clean water. Your soil needs to be quite nutritious, just for your vegetable plants to successfully grow and produce. If you go into a garden centre and explain to them what you're going to do, they should guide you in the right direction in terms of what fertilizer your soil will require. So I decided to set my vegetable garden on this plot here. There's a number of reasons. Just it's right at the back of our house here. That's just for ease of access to it. Also there's a hedge here, and that will provide good shelter as we're only a mile away from the beach, so we're quite exposed to coastal winds, and this hedge here will provide good shelter for that. You don't want to, if you're in a similar situation, you don't want to set the garden too close to the hedge, obviously, because it'll block out the sun. Just keep it out a bit, just within reason. Also, the hedge, it's mainly a bramble hedge. These produce flowers during the summer, and that will attract bees. Bees are essential to a garden as well, as they transport pollen from the male plant to the female plant. The bee, once it goes from the male plant to the female plant, it pollinates the female plant, and the plant then produces the fruit. That's the same situation here with a bramble. They produce flowers, the bee attracts the bees for pollination, and them bees will be close to my garden. Draw out my vegetable garden plan, but before I do that, I just want to talk more about soil fertility, as is quite important for producing healthy vegetable plants. Firstly, though, I want to talk about poor soil, as you might identify your soil as this and the actions you need to take to correct it. Poor soil, if your soil has too much clay, if it's too sandy, if it's too stony, even though a few stones within the soil is quite beneficial, as it draws heat from the sun and heats up your soil in order for the plants to grow quicker. And if it's too acidic, that's just the pH within your soil, which I'll talk about more later. Also, if your soil has too much clay in it, it can hold water, and therefore nutrients can be sort of washed out. Again, if it's too sandy or stony, nutrients tend to leach from the soil. Your ideal soil should be crumbly loam with plenty of worms, insects and microbes. These are important for breaking down organic matter and converting it into nutrients to feed the soil, as well as they're good for getting air within the soil as well. That's good for root growth, as well as water down to the roots. But to fix poor soil, you will need to add organic matter. Types of organic matter you can get is compost and animal manure. Both should be well decomposed before applying. That's just so that, just if it's not, it can cause some nutrient loss within the process of being broken down and converted into nutrients within the soil. The types of nutrients in the soil. You have nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, or it's also known as potash. So trace elements within the soil. These are copper, manganese, mercury and zinc, as well as there's other ones which I'm not too sure of. Nitrogen is important for the roots of the plant, the stem, flowers and fruits. That's obviously if it's a fruit plant. Nitrogen deficiency, you can recognize it within the plant if the lower leaves turns yellow or the whole plant turns a pale green. Phosphorus is important for cell division within the plant, root formation, and flowers and fruits. Phosphorus deficiency it can indicate stunted growth and poor flowering and fruiting. Potassium, or also known as potash, is important for many of the chemical processes within the plant. Potassium or potash deficiency would indicate brown scorching on the leaves, the leaf tips curling, and yellowing between the leaf veins, which you'll recognize the veins as just in the center, and just as in between those there'll be a yellowing. Soil pH is measured through acidic, neutral and alkaline. Acidic is below 7, neutral is 7 and alkaline is above 7. The ideal soil pH is 6.5. Soil pH is too low or high, it affects the plant just to be being able to absorb the nutrients from the soil. You change the soil pH. It's a gradual process. You can't change the soil pH now, then and there, or too quick, and it takes about a couple of growing seasons to get it where you want it to be. Fix the soil pH. If it's too acidic, applying lime is a common practice. If it's too alkaline, then applying peat moss, sawdust or oak leaves is quite effective. Best way to know if your soil is nutrient deficient and the soil pH is a soil sample test. There's companies that provide that service, and if you just look up online or ask in your local garden centre, you should find a company that near you, or find a way to do that. So just the actual soil sample testing itself, the company will probably provide you with a box, and you pretty much try and get little core samples. So if you could find some copper pipe or something and just stick it deep into the ground, I think they'll probably recommend how deep, and just push them out with something then, and they'll say how much. Then you'll send them samples off to the company and they'll test them, and probably a couple of weeks they'll send you back the results, as well as some lecture on about the results. The plan of my vegetable garden, that's the hedge there and the fence boundary around it, and there is where my vegetable garden plot is going to be located. I'm going to get it ploughed, rotavated and drill ploughed. I chose this option as it's there's less labor intensive, and it's quick. The other option is ridges, which is quite labor intensive. If you haven't accessed, or if you can't get access to these or big machinery, you can get a small engine powered tiller. Depending on what vegetables you're going to be planting, that will determine the depth you need to go. These are the vegetables I am going to be planting. I may change around where I'm going to be setting them, as some of them are in the same family, and I don't want any cross pollination, as that can cause disease. If your soil needs organic matter, as well as if you're going to be testing it, you will need to be doing this in advance of the actual cultivation of the ground. I'm not sure what variety of each vegetable I will be getting, but I will be going to a gardening centre soon, and I'll see what they'll have available. You can plant the vegetable seeds into small pots with compost, and put them in a glass house or in a warm area with plenty of sunlight, and water them. You can then, in May time is usually when you'd plant them outside. This is just so that there's a consistent mild temperature, and that the soil isn't cold or air temperature that will shock the seedlings, as well as there shouldn't be any frost by then. In the next video I will show you what seeds I purchased, as well as the next stage. Thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something and enjoyed it. Thank you.